Hello students, today we will do question number 22 of a textual exercise. Now here in this question, a system is given which is known as quadruple. So before we move on to the question, we define what is quadruple. Now let us consider a dipole, say minus q plus q. So if it's I have to find out the direction of a dipole moment, it is from negative to positive charge. So this is the direction of a dipole moment. I consider another dipole plus q minus q, an identical dipole. So its direction is from negative to positive charge. The direction of both the dipole moment is opposite. So now if I make one arrangement from this two dipole, it becomes plus 2q plus q plus q plus q2 plus 2q minus q minus q. So this distance is a, this distance is a. This arrangement is known as the quadruple. Now instead of this situation, there is another situation, say plus q minus q plus q. The dipole moment is in this direction, dipole moment opposite. So this system can be formed as minus 2q, a is a distance, this is also a plus q. This is given here. So we have two types of the arrangement can be divided into two types. Now this arrangement is known as a quadruple. Now how will you define the quadruple? So clearly they are the system of two dipoles having dipole moment in the opposite direction. So quadruple is a system of two dipoles lined up in an opposite direction or lined up in such a way, lined up means they are in the same line, they are lined up in such a way that their dipole moments are in opposite direction. So here the dipole moment is along say negative x-axis, the dipole moment of this is along the positive x-axis. So this is the definition of a quadruple. Now like we have a dipole moment, there is a quantity that is called as quadruple moment. So instead of dipole moment, if you are dealing with a quadruple, you have a quantity which is called as quadruple moment, and it is nothing but a product q into 2a square. So instead of the distance, here we have a, so it becomes 2a square here. So this is known as a quadruple moment. So this quantity is a quadruple moment, though there is no proper symbol for this quadruple moment. So generally let us denote it by any symbol, say q dash, capital Q dash, or any symbol, because we don't have a specific symbol. So it should be clear that quadruple is nothing but it is a system of two dipoles lined up in an opposite direction. Now let us come to the question. The question is, a quadruple is given, you have to find out the potential along its axis. So we consider a point P along the axis of a quadruple, and the distance of point P from the center or O for origin is R. We have to find out the potential at point P, which is along the axis. So let point P be on the axis of quadruple, be on the axis of the quadruple at distance R from its center. Distance is measured here from the center. We have to find out the potential at point P. Now potential is a scalar quantity. Now there are three sources, plus q minus 2q. So we will find out potential due to each source and then we sum up the thing. So the potential at point P is Vp is equal to potential at P due to charge at A, potential at P due to charge at B, potential at P due to charge at the origin or at the center. So directly you apply the formula K, source, distance between A and P. So this distance OP is R. So AP becomes R plus A. So R plus A. Similarly, potential at P due to plus Q charge on the right hand side of the origin. That plus Q was on the left hand side. So plus KQ R minus A. Clearly this distance is R minus A. And then the source is minus 2q, so minus 2kq upon the distance between the test and source, that is r. So this is the situation. Vp is equal to, throughout this we take a term kq as a common, so it becomes 1 upon r plus a plus 1 upon r minus a minus 2 upon r. So you can directly take the LCM of all the three terms, or let us take two terms first. So it becomes r minus a plus r plus a get cancelled. So it becomes 2r upon r square minus a square minus 2 upon r. So this is the first two terms are solved. Now you have a 2 as a common. So potential at P is equal to 2kq. 2 is taken outside. So you are left with the term r upon r square minus a square minus 1 upon r. So this is equal to 2kq, taking the LCM r square minus a square, and within the bracket it is r square minus of within bracket r square minus a square. So that r square get cancelled, you are left with a square. So this is an expression for the potential at point P. Now it is clear that Q2A square is a quadrupole moment. So if we say the symbol is say Q dash, so KQ dash upon R square minus a square. So this is the potential at along the axis of a quadrupole. Now the situation given is R is greater than A, means point P is at a large distance as compared to distance between the charges. So we ignore this point A. So if R is greater than A, then potential can be written as K. Remember, this Q dash is a quadrupole moment upon A square is neglected, so it becomes RQ. Now see, we have done in the chapter the monopoles, dipoles, and this is a quadrupole. So it is clear that this is a constant term, so Vp is inversely proportional to the cube of the distance. So for monopole means for a point charge. So for a point charge, Vp was inversely proportional to the R. For dipole, so if you remember the formula for a dipole, it was Kp cos theta upon r square, so 1 upon r square. And when we come to quadruple, then Vp is inversely proportional to the cube of r. So this is the comparison between monopole, dipoles, and quadrupole. Now let us come to question number 21. Now what the question number 21 says, we have two charges, plus q, minus q, and the coordinates of these two charges are 0, 0, A, 0, 0, minus. So the charges plus q and minus q are along the z-axis. So we have taken this as a z-axis. You have to find out, in the first case, potential at point 0, 0, z, means the point P is along the z-axis. And the second part of this is find out the potential at a point xy0, that is in a xy plane. Now we may consider the point P near to plus q, or you may also consider point P near the minus q. However, they have given 0, 0, z, so we are considering it at along the positive x-axis. So let the distance of point P from the origin is small z. Now let us denote the axis name as capital Z. So this distance is say small z. So we have considered this distance as positive. You may consider point P near minus q charge also. Then also that distance will be considered as z only. And we are dealing with a scalar quantity, so we are not taking the plus and minus sign into this consideration. Otherwise, if you have to find out the electric field, the direction will play an important role. So for the first part, again this A part or first part has two portions. So let us say, let point P 0, 0, Z is at distance small z from origin bracket near plus q charge. So we are assuming it as a near plus q charge. You may assume it near the negative charge also. Both are called as the axis. Now you have to find out potential at point P. So as earlier, potential at P is due to plus Q, potential at P is due to minus Q. So potential at point P, so Vp is equal to V plus V minus. See, it is a dipole only, and we have already done this theory as a potential due to a dipole. Again we are doing the same thing. So K source, distance between test and source, so this distance comes out to be Z minus A minus KQ, distance between point P and minus Q is Z plus A. So this is potential due to dipole only. So Vp is equal to, it is along the axial point, this is along the axial point. We have taken the general situation. So again KQ is common. So it becomes 1 minus Z by A, 1 upon Z minus A and 1 upon Z plus A. So therefore, potential at point P is equal to KQ, now Z plus A minus Z plus A. So it becomes A plus A 2A upon Z square minus A square. So if you remember the formula, general formula was Kp cos theta. General formula was Kp cos theta upon the same denominator was there. Now theta is along the axis, so it is 0. So cos 0 is 1. So you got, this is our P term. So Vp is equal to Kp upon Z square minus A square. That is equation number 1 or our answer. Now if you assume that, second part also we will do from this. If we assume the distance of point P as a r, here it will be r square, and if r is greater, A can be neglected, so second part can be directly written. Now before that, this is the potential at point P when you have considered point P near the plus Q charge. If point P is near minus Q charge, then Vp will be equal to minus Kp upon Z square minus A square. So in this situation, cos theta or theta will be 180 degree and cos 180 will be equal to minus 1. So whether you consider point P along a positive Z axis or negative Z axis, your answer will be plus minus potential at point P. So general formula, in general, Vp is equal to plus minus Kp upon Z square minus A square. So this is the first part of A portion. Now see the second part. Now in second part, the point P is along xy plane. So if I consider the situation like this, this is our Z axis, this is taken as x axis, let us take this as x axis, and this is your y axis. So this is the situation, this is our y axis. So let us consider this situation. This is a Z axis, this is x axis, and this is your y axis. Now plus Q charge is at this point on the Z axis and minus Z is here. Now if I consider any point P here, suppose it is in xy plane, this is your x axis, this is your y. So this becomes your xy plane, this becomes your xy plane, this is xy plane. Now if I consider any point P here, let us say like this, this is your x axis, this is your y axis. If I consider point P here, this distance from plus Q charge and the distance from minus Q charge, it will be same. See, it will be a triangle will be formed like this. So this distance from plus 2 point P in xy plane and minus Q to this. So the point P if it is in the xy plane, this distance, say that distance is say r, so this distance r and this is distance is also r, distance between test and source. So kq upon r, then source is negative, minus kq upon r, so potential comes out to be 0. Also, if I take this plane, then it will become, for any plus charge, we know that if I consider electric field intensity, it will be from positive to negative. So electric field intensity is from along the negative z-axis, and then this plane will become the equipotential plane also, if I consider a plane. However, here you have to take a point in a xy plane. So the second portion of A is, if point P is in xy plane, that is pxy0, then its distance from plus q and minus q is same. Let it be, that is, let it be r. Also you can say that point P is in a plane which is a perpendicular bisector of a z-axis. So point P is the perpendicular bisector of a z-axis. So let this distance be r. So Vp at that situation will be kq upon r minus kq upon r. So potential in xy plane comes out to be 0. So if you consider a point P in an xy plane, it is clear that the potential comes out to be 0 because it is at a same distance. So it is a perpendicular bisector. So that point P is on the perpendicular bisector of a z-axis. So that point P is here. This was our z-axis. So point P was here. So it is a perpendicular bisector of a z-axis. Now if I consider the second part, obtain dependence when r is greater than a. So in this equation, let us name this equation 1, 2, this 3. From equation 3, if z is taken as r, this small z distance is taken as r, then Vp is equal to plus minus kp upon r square minus a square. Now if r is greater than a, then Vp is equal to plus minus kp upon r square, which indicate Vp is inversely proportional to the square of a distance. So it is clear that we have already written this expression in the previous question. So if it is a dipole, the potential is inversely proportional to the square of the distance. So in section B, we have to find out the dependence when r is greater than a. Third portion. Now see the third portion. It is given that find out the work done to move a test charge from 5, 0, 0 to minus 0, 0. Now see this. You are moving along the x-axis. This is our x-axis. And the source is at plus q, minus q. It is along the z-axis. Now, if I take this point, say point P, it is 5, 0, 0, and this is point Q, say minus 7, 0, 0. Now say that this point is equal distance from the source, both are the source. This is also at the same distance. So what will be the potential difference when you move from one point to another point? It gives rise to the potential difference. But here you have to move a test charge, so it will give you rise to energy difference. But what will be the potential at point P due to plus Q? Let this distance is again called as R. So KQ upon R. For this, minus KQ upon R. So it comes out to be 0. Similarly, when we come here, KQ upon R, kq upon r, minus kq upon r. So again potential is 0. And if we don't understand all this thing, it is clear that you are moving along the equatorial axis of a dipole. This is the axis of a dipole and this is the equatorial axis. Or a test charge is moved on an equatorial line and potential due to dipole on an equatorial point or an equatorial line comes out to be 0. So what will be the work done? Work done to move test charge. Work done to move test charge from 500 to minus 700 is 0 because point lie on equatorial line of dipole. So our point lie on the equatorial line of a dipole, or we are moving, or it is perpendicular. The point is a perpendicular bisector of z-axis. So this is a perpendicular bisector of a z-axis. So in this case the work done comes out to be 0 because either you say this x-axis is a equatorial line of a dipole, or you can say it is a perpendicular bisector of the z-axis. In any situation the work done is 0. Now it is not necessary that you move from this point P to Q in a straight line. Even if I move along any path, the work done, we know that does not depend on the path followed. It depends only on the initial and the final position. So even if we go to the first topic, this work done will give rise to the energy difference. That was work done from P to Q is equal to Q into final minus initial. So even if you find out this potential at Q point, so potential at Q point should have two parts. Potential at Q point due to plus Q, due to minus Q, that is 0. Potential at point P, again it have two parts, plus Q minus Q. So again it is 0. So work done comes out to be 0. So we can prove that work done is 0 by taking many methods, or by different ways. You can say one was the point you are moving on an equatorial line. The other thing is you are moving on a perpendicular bisector of z-axis. Or I can apply this formula and I can say that a potential difference is 0, so work done is 0, and work done does not depend on the path followed. Now let us move to question number 20. Two spheres of radius small a and b are given, and they have a charge distributed on them. You have to find out the ratio of electric field at the surface of the two spheres when both the spheres are connected with a conducting wire. So both the spheres are initially charged and they are connected with the help of a conducting wire. So we know that if the spheres are connected by a conducting wire, the charge will flow from one sphere to another till their potential becomes same. That we have done earlier also. So directly we start that if these two spheres which are charged are connected by a conducting wire, and the charge on this is Q1 and the charge on this is Q2, the charge will flow from one sphere to another till the potential becomes same. So let V1 is equal to V2 when both spheres are connected by conducting wire. Now if I take C1 and C2 as the capacitance of these two spheres, we will see that an individual sphere can also behave like a capacitor. An individual sphere can also behave like a capacitor, assuming the other sphere or the other plate is at an infinite distance. But the capacitance of such sphere is very, very low. So it is not necessary that the two spheres kept parallel or two plates kept parallel to each other behave like a capacitor. A one conductor having a very large dimension can behave like a capacitor, assuming the other conductor is at infinite distance. For example, Earth can also behave like a capacitor, but we will see that its capacitance is very low. So we will come to this concept that an individual sphere can also behave like a capacitor. For the time being, let C1 and C2 be the capacitance of these two spheres. So let C1 and C2 be the capacitance, that is respective capacitance of C1 sphere having radius A and B. So in this situation, we know that Q is equal to CV. Q is equal to CV. So this can be written as Q1 upon C1 is equal to Q2 upon C2. We use this concept for finding out the capacitance of a capacitor. If the two capacitors are connected, then how the charge can be distributed on it by using componendo and that method. Now Q1 upon C1 is equal to Q2 upon C2. Therefore, Q1 upon Q2 is equal to C1 upon C2. Also, this is equation 1. Also, we know that capacitance is directly proportional to the area. Directly proportional to the area. We are assuming each sphere in individual sphere, both are, it is not forming a system of a, it is not forming a capacitor. This sphere individually behave like a capacitor, this sphere also behave individually like a capacitor. So it is two capacitors which are connected with the help of a conducting wire. We will also see this, that how this individual conductor can behave like a capacitor. So for the time being, we have assumed we have two capacitor, spherical capacitor in which the radius of one sphere is A, that of other is B. So C is directly proportional to the area, or we will see that when it behave like a individual conductor behave like a capacitor, it is C is directly proportional to R. So either you say it behave like proportional to area, or let us say it is proportional to the radius, say R. So C is directly proportional to R provided the individual conductor is behaving like a capacitor. How the individual conductor behave like a capacitor, that we will see. So we are taking this as granted that an individual sphere behave like a capacitor. For example, Earth can behave like a capacitor. Now if individual sphere behave like a capacitor, we will see that C is proportional to the radius. So in this situation, therefore Q1 upon Q2 is equal to A upon B. So this is the situation, A and B are radius. So this is Q1 upon Q2. Now you have to find out the ratio of the electric field at the surface of the two spheres. Now E1 upon E2 is equal to, now for a sphere this will be equal to KQ1 upon A square, and for E2 it becomes KQ2 upon B square. So for this sphere we are considering the electric field intensity to be KQ upon A square and KQ upon B square. Therefore E1 upon E2 is equal to Q1 upon Q2 and B square upon A square. Now using this equation 2, Q1 upon Q2 can be written as A upon B. So E1 upon E2 is equal to, if I substitute A and B here, it becomes B upon A. So remember that the electric field intensity is inversely proportional to the radius. Electric field intensity is inversely proportional to the radius. So if a sphere is given to you, the electric field intensity is inversely proportional to the radius. So this you have to remember. For an individual sphere you have 1 upon r square. Now see the second part. Explain why charge density on the sharp and pointed end of a conductor is higher than the flatter portion. Now before we move on to this, we know that electric field intensity of a sphere is sigma upon epsilon naught. That is what we have seen in chapter 1. So the electric field intensity of a sphere or any conductor is E is equal to sigma upon epsilon naught. So if I take this equation 3 and equation 4, I can write sigma 1 upon sigma 2 is equal to B upon A. That is, sigma is inversely proportional to the radius. Here in all this expression, R is radius because you are dealing with a sphere. So surface charge density is inversely proportional to the radius of a sphere. Now, why the charge density on sharp and pointed end of a conductor is higher than the flatter portion? Now let us consider a conductor having the shape like this. Now it is like a sphere has been compressed. The sphere has been compressed like this, so it is elongated. Now see this portion radius and this portion radius. So this portion radius, as we move towards the pointed end, the radius or the distance between these two parts keeps on decreasing. So when there is a pointed end, the surface charge density on it is more as compared to the flatter portion. Now this is a flatter portion. So if we compress this any conductor and make it a pointed, the surface charge density will be more as compared to the surface charge density at a flatter portion or a away portion. So why? So from this expression it should be clear that surface charge density is inversely proportional to the radius. So as the radius decreases, so if I compare its radius and the average radius of this shape, I am saying the average radius of this, and this is a sphere, then its average radius is less. This portion is pointed end. So you must understand, when we comb our dry hair, the surface charge density at the pointed end is more. This is a teeth of a comb. Now if I rub this comb to my dry hair, you will find that the density will be more at this end as compared to this flatter portion. So this is the reason, because the surface charge density is inversely proportional to the radius. So we will also see how an individual sphere will be considered as a capacitor. Here we assume it, and we have derived the relation when the two spheres are connected with the help of a conducting wire. We assume that both the spheres are individually a capacitor. So we wind up our lecture with this numerical. Have a good day.